Hello and welcome back to the Netflix Explorer, my channel where I talk all things knitting, all things exploration, i.e. travel, and if there's anything on Netflix, Amazon Prime, Apple TV, etc. Today I want to talk about traveling with knitting, but before I start that, if you watched my last video, I was talking about these fingerless mittens, which is something I was knitting with in my last travel. It's still not finished, but I am going to finish it. I just have been busy, but just want to talk to you about the yarn. I did not talk to you about the yarn that I used for it. The yarn I used were these, and to be honest with you, they are double knit yarn. The weight of the yarn is called double knit, and they are cheap king hole yarn that I bought at some pharmacy or some supermarket somewhere that sells a whole load of cheap yarn. And the reason I use just plain old acrylic for my for my fingerless mittens is because they're so easy to wash with, and it comes out sparkling and lovely. I do like expensive yarn. I do like the 100% wool. They keep you warm when you're having them as knitting them up as jumpers, if you're knitting scarves, then they do keep you warm. It's or bits that have 80% wool and a little bit of acrylic. Those things are pretty good, and I do have a lot of them, and I do use them a lot. But when it comes to fingerless mittens, I will use the cheap yarns because I can throw them in the wash. And I realized my experience with this started when my son was young, and I used to have my mother-in-law, ex-mother-in-law, used to knit him just like cardigans, and they would go in the wash like so many times, because you know what children are like. They're constantly spilling things down their front when they're eating, and he'd wear the jumper and or the cardigan, and it would go in the wash, and they came out amazing. They washed really well on a 40-degree wash. They didn't pill as much, and it was just so resilient. And I thought, when I was designing fingerless mittens, that I wanted to make sure that I was using just the cheap acrylic yarn, so that people who knit with them could just chuck them in the wash. So as long as you're knitting him according to the instructions on the label, of course, most acrylic is 40 degrees or less. So just check the label, I would say, just to be on the safe side. Saying that, a lot of my fingerless mittens have been knit to give away as presents, so I don't always have that many on hand, but I do knit a lot of them, especially my basket weave design, which is so easy. The pattern, there's a couple of repeats on there. I think it's 13 row repeat, and it's done. You can knit it with double pointed needles, or which is that we call DPNs in the knitting world, or there's 4 of them, or you could knit them in the magic loop, via the magic loop method, but not 2 straight needles. So if you don't know how to knit with that, I'm sure there's videos out there that you could learn how to use either magic loop, or you could use double pointed needles. Right, so that is addressing my but the yarn that I used in the last that I talked about with the project I'm knitting at the moment. So I will talk about my travel. I want to talk about my traveling experience on taking my needles through security. So I travel when I travel, and I have to knit, and I love to knit either on the plane if I'm awake and if it's a long journey, or sometimes if you travel a lot, whether it's on a train or a bus or even a plane, you know, there's a lot of waiting time if you're in an airport or a train station, or you're actually traveling. So in that time, having something handy to knit is great, except when you're going through airport security, we do come across issues where sometimes they may confiscate your needles, which is a complete and utter heartbreak. That happened to me once in Portugal, and I was so upset. Luckily, I wasn't traveling with my expensive needles. I have a set of Knit Pro interchangeable needles, and I have rosewood Knit Pro needles that I use, and I love them so much. So I try not to take them with me if I'm planning to take them through airport security. I have had people picking up the needles and touching them like that to see how sharp they are and whether they are acceptable. I have had people who've taken the needle and gone to ask their supervisor whether this can be put through. I have had some panics Luckily, they have allowed me to take the needles through. And sometimes what I do is I separate all the needles. So I'll put one in a different part of the hand luggage and another in a different part and one in my handbag. And I have to remember where I kept them all because I'll reunite them when I've gone through security. And when I've done that, very rarely have they been caught. I'm not saying you won't get caught with it. I'm just saying that's what I do. So if it helps, maybe you could try that and see if you got any joy. But don't take anything expensive, just in case they confiscate it, and that will be a complete and utter heartbreak. And I don't want to be responsible for that. Right, so when I'm traveling, so if you've got any other ideas and thoughts, and just post it down on the notes section so that I could have a little look and see whether I could use that or might help somebody else who's watching this video. Right, so the next thing I want to talk about is programs I watch on when I'm knitting. So whether it's Netflix, Amazon Prime, Apple TV or whatever. I like watching crime dramas. I like watching true crime dramas. They're different, by the way. One's fiction, one's non-fiction. Icelandic or Scandinavian kind of crime dramas are amazing. I also like to watch documentaries, and when I say documentaries, I'm not talking about the David Attenborough type programs, although I do like them, but I also like to watch political documentaries, scientific documentaries, or engineering. I like watching engineering documentaries. So there's a few things, even sports documentaries. I'm a complete sports fan, so some of those, depending on the mood, I'll watch those. Obviously, I like movies. At the moment, I'm rewatching Friends on Netflix. I do know, because I've been to America, I do know that it's aired in Netflix the UK, but it's not aired in Netflix America. So I'm not sure why Netflix does that. But yeah, I have it on tap. So sometimes when I'm in between programs and I'm not sure what I want to watch, I just put the odd Friends comedy program on. I also like Frasier. I've not watched it in a real long time, but I do want to restart that again. Love that program. So yeah, depending on what comedy I'm into, so watch that. And yeah, that's all of those happened while the knitting project is in my hand and I'm knitting. The other thing I'm completely into is sci-fi. So I'm a Trekkie. I won't wear the outfit and go around or go to a Star Trek convention, but I am absolutely a Trekkie fan, and I get to points in my life where I think I need to be aboard a ship. I just the hum and the noise of a ship, and unless you're a Trekkie, you wouldn't know what I'm talking about. I do like watching Star Trek too. So those are the things that keeps me going. If there's anything interesting that you think that I should be watching, do let me know. And if you've got any working projects that you're working on, do let me know. And of course, your traveling experiences with needles when you're out and about, that would be lovely to hear about too. Thank you so much for watching my video. Please check out my other videos. Thank you for joining my channel if you joined it, and you subscribed. If you haven't, please subscribe. Thank you so much for listening to me, and have a lovely day.